Alright, everybody, welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live. This is going to be for the week of February 11th, 2018. Well, got some bad news to start the week with. Apparently, late Saturday night, I seem to be coming down with some kind of cold. I think it was from when I was working at my temp job this past week, so I got the cough, got the aches, and it's just been a very lovely Sunday morning. And hopefully my co-host is doing better, but please welcome video game producer Robert Leach.
Hello. I feel like I am probably doing better, yes.
We're kind of doing a different arrangement. We're using our Discord for the voice, while we're using Skype for the video. So we got some crazy hodgepodge thing going on right now. So hopefully you guys can hear Rob. Actually, I'm going to raise you up a little bit more on my side. Hopefully I'm coming in as well. So
yeah, the complexity is my fault.
Thanks, Getter. Yeah, I know. I think. How are you feeling? Because I know you were feeling lousy this past week as well. And it seems like I was telling Rob I need to get a bubble now when I go out into the crazy world. You know, this real life thing. But in terms of some good, well, actually a little bit more bad news, I'm debating if I can put together a dissecting design for this week. I was, of course, waiting till Sunday to get the recording done. I'm going to see if I can push through it, just so we keep things consistent, but right now it's going to be a little hard. Huh, that's good for you, Getter. Yeah, now my cough is still coming in. Also, for you guys watching this either live or recorded, we have some developer live casts coming up this week. Fingers crossed I'll be feeling well enough for it. But first off, this Tuesday at around 3 Eastern, I'm going to be talking to Ian Hamilton. He is an accessibility expert, and he worked on Celeste to try and make the game more accessible to people, despite going mad trying to play the C side of that game the other night. But we're going to talk about the importance of accessibility and things to work on when it comes to game design. Elgar saying you gotta sleep like Michael Jackson. I just took an Advil about 20 minutes ago for the aches, and I'm going to be taking some more cough syrup later. I woke up like around like noon, and I didn't feel like sleeping anymore. Like all of a sudden, I just woke up, I'm like, I don't want to sleep. It's so weird. But the other developer live cast is going to be this Saturday coming up. I am going to be talking to, I believe his name is Joe King from Sumo Digital. We're going to be talking about the importance of looking outside the game industry for inspirations and, you know, anything to help you with designing a brand new game. I think that's a very interesting topic. What do you think, Rob?
Oh, definitely. I think that's always interesting to find where people get their inspiration from.
Mm-hmm. And like I just said with this cough, there is a very good chance I may start doing a coughing fit, so we'll see what happens. But I already prep Rob that if I do collapse, he will have to assume the captain's duty for the rest of our stream. So, Rob, I hope you're ready for that.
Yeah, no, I'm not. But you know, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Anything else coming up this week? I'm going to be updating the, of course, Saturday Night Grab Bag. Also, I want to get your guys' thoughts about this. I wanted to make a new reward on the Patreon. I'm thinking about basically anyone who donates will do like a special thank you page that will pop up like at the end of videos or during the pre-stream, and basically will get updated maybe like once a month for everyone who who supported the month before. I figure, another little way of giving back. It will maybe be like 5 extra seconds at the end of each video. So let me know what you guys think about that. What do you think about that one, Rob?
It sounds like a good idea. I was actually noticing Getter's comment.
Yeah.
I agree with that one. It's pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. Necessity is the motherhood of invention, right?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to be talking to someone else around here locally about putting on presentations. It's still way too soon to be getting excited about it, so yep, I think we'll do that. Oh, I got my first super chat donation this past week. Someone tipped me 5. I think it was Eldwin or Etherville. I'm sorry, my cold haze is confusing names, but I actually got my first tip during a YouTube stream, so thank you so much. And that was, of course, when I was going mad playing Celeste there. Did you have a chance to play Celeste yet, Rob?
Oh, no, of course not. I barely know what it is. I think I might have looked it up when you were talking about it on the
It's
Discord?
yeah, it's a very challenging platformer with
Ah,
the kind of hook of the game is that there's an assist mode that basically allows anyone, regardless of skill, to beat the game. You can literally turn
oh yeah,
on
yeah,
invincibility in that game, which
yeah. You
that would have
admit,
certainly have made the final level so a lot easier.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had chatted about. I don't know if we chatted about that live, but certainly on Discord.
hmm I believe El Gore with the tips. I know he tipped me 5, but I think it comes out like as like 350 or something like that. Again, it's very hard to tell, and unfortunately, I'm not in the position to be doing too much digging right now. But
Yeah,
Celeste is very interesting. On one hand, it's accessible like that, but on the other hand, the game design, I don't think it's that accessible. Like, they really don't do a good job, in my opinion, of teaching the player how you're supposed to do these things. And we mentioned this on stream several times that it doesn't feel like there's an order of complexity or difficulty. Like, if you've played any platform or action game, it goes, easy, medium, hard, advanced. There's a general idea of it's going to get harder as time goes on. In Celeste, it just feels like everything is just thrown together. So, to give you an example, on the stream, we spent 30 minutes doing one room of the seaside, which is like the Kaizo super difficulty level. I did
jeez.
that, and then the very next room, I beat that on my second attempt.
Hmm.
So, it doesn't feel like it's balanced like that. And here's something: the final level of the final difficulty introduces a brand new mechanic that's used just for that one
Huh.
level.
That's interesting.
So, like,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. Oh, did you hear me?
I just
Oh,
said go ahead.
oh.
Didn't hear
I
after.
was just saying that it's just weird that it's accessible on one hand, but then it's brutally difficult on the other.
Yeah, I feel like games should have a definite flow about them,
Hmm.
especially platformers. Like you say, it's supposed to get harder over time, but yeah, it should go harder and then maybe dip a little bit easier again, and then get harder. And yeah, introducing a new mechanic on the very last stage, especially one that you probably have to teach the player at such a late time in the game, is a little
Hmm.
weird.
Yeah, you're kind of distorting a little bit there, Rob. I'm hearing
I'm
like a
sorry.
little roboticized there. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
on my end or your end or a combination of the two.
Well, let's just hope it's clears up soon. I'm gonna blame your cold. How about that?
All right, cold's infecting the air now. There we go.
Yeah.
And it's also nasty out here. How's the weather where you're at?
Nice, I should say. Yeah, we've had a very fortunate winter. Although I keep telling people we're getting the good parts of global warming over here. We had like 70 degrees all winter long.
Nice.
It was I cannot complain.
Let's see. In terms of games played or games I play this week, I just got like a smorgasbord of indie puzzle and platformer games, or actually it's a wide variety of games to play this week. I was telling Rob about this. I'm starting to believe that every indie puzzle game designer knows each other. Because after I played Shadowhand, a developer got in touch with me about, let me try your game, or can you please try my game? I saw your covering of it. And then someone else said, hey, I saw your play of this indie game. Could you play my puzzle game? So
Right.
I'm becoming the indie puzzle guy, but I won't be the indie Dark Souls guy. Come on, start sending me more Dark Souls likes. But of
Yeah.
course, we are now officially in the year of the PUBG Battle Royale. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of those in space, underwater, magic. I think we've seen a few zombie ones.
Of course.
I think there's a caveman PUBG in the works. So it's not going to end, Rob. I don't think it's going to end
No.
anytime soon.
Well, of course it will. The bubble will burst, and just like always, there's going to be the couple that are very popular, probably PUBG,
hmm
and the others are just going to find out that no one's playing their game because everyone's playing the top two or three.
hmm let's see. Some weird games I've played. Twisted Metal PUBG, possibly. And I think it was El Gordo who was saying this on our grab bag stream last night. Now I'm really sad about this. He was talking about how we should totally see a new Battletoads game with a Double Dragon team up. And now I feel sad because that game doesn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. So you're just not supposed to bring that kind of thing up.
hmm
It's like saying Half-Life 3.
Hmm. Or I'm hoping we actually get a Demon Souls remaster because I was looking at the there really is a Twisted Metal one in development. The
Well,
fun,
see, that is Twisted Metal though.
uh
It's always been a battle
yeah,
royale. So
that's the
they're
thing.
just
For
making a new Twisted Metal.
you guys watching this, either live or recorded, El Gordo tells me about all these games that are coming out, and I'm never sure if he's just joking and it's just like a crazy description that he's imagining, or it's a real game. So I just never know anymore. I don't know. Maybe that Battletoads Double Dragon game is in development somewhere. We should totally call Rareware up and ask them about it.
There you go.
Oh goodness. So here's some very interesting games I got from Press Keys this week, Rob. That I want to see what you think about them. The first one is this game called Attack of the Earthlings. Have you seen that
Hmm.
one yet?
Oh no, is that on Steam?
Yeah, it's kind of like a reverse XCOM. You're playing the alien who's trying to invade this drilling platform and kill all the humans and create new followers, and it's all turn-based as well.
Interesting. Okay, I see it.
It's not going to
I'll
hit.
have to keep looking at it.
It's not going to hit like the levels of tactical gameplay like XCOM does, but it's got like that black comedy or that dark humor that I think works for it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's doing too well right now.
Really?
It's got a high price point.
Ah,
It's got
yes.
23 reviews. It came out on the 8th, and it's got 23 reviews right now. So that does not bode well.
Mm. Yeah, and $22. Again, it's so hard these days when it comes to price checking.
Yeah, it is
Same.
hard, but I feel like if you're not if you're an indie, you should not start at $25
Mm.
as a general rule. If not many people have heard of your game, you're going to want as much publicity as possible, and that includes going under $10.
Mm.
that's that's the reality of it, sadly.
Mm-hmm. One second. I want to try to cut a few more things out on this end. There we go. Hopefully everyone can still hear. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, and like for instance, like Shadow Tactics, that ninja-based Commandos pseudo sequel, that launched at like $40, and it's rarely gone on sale.
Yeah.
And due to like crazy bundle shenanigans during the last sale, I got it for $13, and I still don't know how that worked. Something about how it was cheaper in the bundle, but I already own part of the bundle, so they added it to another game. Like
Yeah.
yada yada yada. I end up with a discount somehow.
Yeah, the it is. It's difficult for pricing. It's always going to be. I do know those games that just never drop in price. Certainly, if it sold well, then yeah, you have reason. But if you did not, then you're tenuously grabbing onto something that just isn't working.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
And the other game that I play that I'm really liking, it's one of those very niche games, but
Mhm.
it's a War Tile. Have you heard of that one?
I have not. Let's look at it.
It's a Viking mythology. I'm having a hard time describing it. It's real time, but you're moving figurines around like in a diorama, and the whole
Yeah,
the whole game is built on that diorama aesthetic. It's kind of like Hitman Go for those of you watching this, in terms of like it's little figures moving around, but you're still performing combat and you're doing positioning and flanking with it.
those graphics look amazing.
Yeah. It's not as I think deep as I think people would be expecting, but again, it's one of those games that it scratches a very unique itch. And if you do want that kind of game, it's going to work for you. But if you don't, you're not going to pay more than like 2 minutes of attention to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminds me of a game I played not too long ago. Let's see if I can dig it up. Where did it go?
Hmm.
Where did it go?
Always
what?
the fun of live Steam searches.
Yeah. Always the fun. Always fun of the. Oh God. Yeah, I'm embarrassed right now because I can't remember what it's called. It kind of reminds. It sounds like it kind of reminds me of Banner Saga, but you say it's real time.
Yeah.
Gosh, what's the other one? Oh well, whatever. I'll find it someday.
Yep, and that diorama aesthetic. I'm sure I'm thinking of the same game as you, Rob, because I know there was another game that made use of it. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'm in cold mode right now, so I can't be
Yeah,
thinking. I can't be accessing the game design encyclopedia in my head.
yeah. Sadly, mine is not an encyclopedia. It's just this a bunch of torn, napkins with notes on them, just kind of strewn about. That's how my brain works. So
As a funny
sadly,
thing, I typed up another entry of that ebook about the top 20 top or great 20 games to look at for game design, and I
yeah.
got to the entry on Demon Souls. So I typed like 3,000 words up on it just alone for that. And now I want to write a book on Demon Souls after writing that one little section about it.
Well, there you go. Sounds like you got your next seller there.
Yeah, now I just gotta finish this one first.
Yeah,
I'm at I think 17 of 20 right now, so it's getting there. It's just gotta find the time to type up those last few entries.
yeah.
Let's see. Sometimes, yeah, we've seen developers who have just outright refused to put their game on sale. Um,
Yes.
there's this game.
Eodor, by the way. Sorry, I found it. Eodor.
Oh, Eudor.
Masters of the Broken World.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Banner Saga, that was another interesting one. They had trouble when they released their free to play game of it. And yeah, like the first one came out really well done. I didn't really hear too much about the second, and now they're still working on number three.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really interesting to see how that's doing. It's I guess here's a question for you, Rob. With your video game producing background, do you think it's easier to sustain a series, as in I'm going to make game one, two, three, four, versus a studio going I'm going to make this game, then we'll make something completely different, and then we'll make something completely different still.
I feel like it's the success. Hey, son, by the way.
Hey,
I
some.
feel like it's the success of the first one that determines it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you are just hell bent on making a variety of games in various genres, well, you're going to have to take that first. You're going to have to take that first game's earnings and kind of put it that direction. And if that first game is the only popular thing you have, you always can fall back as long as you set aside the funds to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that cash cow and just keep going with sequel after sequel until you've totally burnt it out.
Mm-hmm.
Son,
Uh,
son likes the game. Apparently.
I don't think I've had a chance to play that one. Yeah, I know I've bought a few of them through GOG and Steam, but God help me if I can ever find the time. Again, I still haven't played Shadow Tactics and Planet Coaster yet. And I need to do that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep, that is certainly true, Getter. You have like Final Fantasy again. There's a reason it was called Final Fantasy. They weren't expecting that series to do all that well. Now we're up to 15. Oh, by the way, Rob, they announced a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3. Have you
Oh
ever played
boy.
into Kingdom Hearts games?
Yeah, I played the first one. That was fun. It was. I mean, I was a fan of Final Fantasy back then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like a lot of people, I got into seven, and then went from there. But yeah, I liked Kingdom Hearts one, and I never, because it's console, I never really got a chance to get much else going since I've set myself back up in the PC realm.
Mm-hmm. I own the first two, but I have absolutely no freaking idea what the story of that game is anymore. There's been
Yeah.
prequels, side stories, different characters. There's a mobile game. I think there's a movie. I think at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, there was a trailer hinting at the prequel, hinting at the sequel of something. And there's people right now on Twitter just trying to figure out what the hell is going on in that. Apparently, like they showed screenshots. I think they're going to do Toy Story, Sonic the Hedgehog, and something else. And I don't know if that's real or not. It could be. That's the thing. It's just like El Gordo's game suggestions. He could be making them up, but there's a probably good chance someone's making them somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. Now, I just go back on Final Fantasy. It just occurred to me that
Oop.
way to go if you are going to make a bunch of different games as a publisher and a developer. Just keep calling them sequels, even though they're not. Just keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Fool people into thinking it's an actual series.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me with Final Fantasy, the last one I really loved was I always confuse these. I think it's 12. That's not the MMO one, right? Is 11th the MMO?
I think 11th is the MMO,
Yeah,
or
so
11 is.
12 was the one that I really enjoyed because I heard everybody who was a hardcore fan of Final Fantasy hated 12. And that's the one that I love. Because it is completely different from all the other Final Fantasies. It has more of that pseudo MMO feel to it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true, Getter. I'm sure they're going to do Star Wars, Marvel.
Marvel, yeah.
Oh, maybe we'll get a Gravity Falls Kingdom Hearts crossover.
And Bob's Burgers and Simpsons and whatever else they got in that deal.
Harry Potter, the whole shebang there. Yeah, 11 was the MMO. 13 was another MMO, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Yeah.
one that everyone hated and they had to redo it. And yeah, I'm still
Well,
waiting.
there's Final Fantasy 14, which looks like online.
And then 15 is the one that just came out. That's the one where they're all on the car trip. It's great that two PC guys are breaking down the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts mythology here. I think we're doing a great job. We should contact Square Enix and let them know we got this.
Well, I gotta say, I recently was introduced to Final Fantasy 15. I've been out of that world for so long, I didn't even know it was out. Was it XP? Because I saw that they have a Windows edition now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for it, but it just pimps all of the fancy graphics that they have introduced in the game. And there's nothing else in the trailer. It just says, here's the new like the particle engine we're using. And here's the new hair physics thing we're using. And here's this and that and the other thing. And it's just annoying. It's like, okay, I get it. I will never be able to play this game because I can't afford a computer that will do that. But thanks anyway.
It will blow up my computer. Again, PUBG makes my computer blow up, so just thinking about Final Fantasy 15 will probably set my house on fire.
Oh, for sure. I recommend watching the trailer because it is interesting that they do show gameplay. You don't seem to care about what is in the gameplay. They just are all about the physics and the graphics engines, which is very irritating.
It certainly looks fancy. Let's see, does it even show... Oh, good.
Ultimate
it's 100 gigabyte game. Oh my god.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. Let's see, 16 gigs of RAM. Okay, yeah, that's about right. Yeah, we're not running that one here. And I won't get back to Sungim's comment. 12 is either totally forgettable or, yeah, it is certainly a slow burn. And, yeah, it got... And, like, the story just, like, seems to, like, fizzle out at some point. 13, I think I own that one. I own random Final Fantasy games. Like, after I played 12 and I liked it, I'm like, maybe this series is... Maybe, I'm ready for this series again. So I bought, like, a lot of the old GBA remastered ones. Yeah. I tried a Dragon Warrior. But, yeah, like, it's just a hard sell for me to go back to those old school ones. Like, the only one that I play is Etrian Odyssey. But even that one, it's just very hard to commit because it's like it's an easy 40 to 80 hours of powering up your group in order to play that game.
Well, I mean, it is. It's a very slow, slow type of story involved. And I know ARPGs, you can do the same kind of time. It's the same kind of time sink, but you can kind of drop it and pick it up any time without having to worry about story. I know they put an awful lot of writing in those things, but they may as well not do any of that. For all the good it does them.
Yeah, but the other thing about RPGs is that you're getting right into the action from the get-go, and it's going to get better from there. I remember, like, with 13, I'm like, okay, we're going to start playing, but all the game systems are locked from the start. And someone said, oh, the first 15 to 20 hours, that's the intro. I'm like, no, no, I'm not doing that.
It's like as if the entire Lord of the Rings director's cut plus The Hobbit. That's just the intro to what's the meat of the story.
What's that? The Sumerian? Again, I'm sick and I can barely say those crazy words to begin with, so I'm not pronouncing that anytime soon. Yeah. And 12 again, like I know it was done by the team who did Final Fantasy Tactics for the Game Boy Advance and I think the DS at the time. So they certainly had that clout to them. But yeah, it's very interesting, like with the whole sequel thing, that Final Fantasy games just really go for completely different like designs with each game. Like we've talked about this before. I know I've mentioned, but like it kind of feels like with Final Fantasy, they just literally throw everything out that they did with the previous game, and then start
Yeah,
from
they're not
scratch.
sequels.
Yeah.
They're not sequels. They're just games by the same company that have Easter eggs that are kind of shared between them, like
Mm-hmm.
Chacos and some of the larger like
Sid is a
deities and
character.
stuff.
Summons. I
Yeah,
know. I guess my little game nerdiness. I do have my triple triad deck somewhere around from Final Fantasy VIII. That old CCG they put out for it.
yeah, yeah. I remember that one. 8 was another one that had a slow start because you didn't actually get into the game. You're starting in that school for like hours, and then
Mm,
finally you got into the actual gameplay.
yeah.
That was interesting.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, I would love for us to see a new game for the Parasite Eve, that series. They did a pseudo spiritual sequel for the PSP, but nothing really came of it. And I think it was more famous for the fact that it was one of those games where the more damage she takes, the more her clothes fall off. Kind of games like, really, you're going to try that and sell the game?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, there's a really good sequitur. Did you hear the news about the new SNK fighting game that they're talking
No, I
about?
have. Uh.
They're going to basically go. They're basically going all in with fan service. So every female character has a bikini. There's like 10 different ones for all the DLC. And they did an interview where someone said, "So why are you doing that?" Like, it makes sense. Just wait and see. We have a good story reason for it. And it's going to be one of
Yeah.
those games where we know who their audience is, so I guess more power to them that they're selling it on that demographic.
Yeah, well, their timing is pretty bad for that kind of thing. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see how it turns out.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't want to get too far into it, but did you hear about the whole news with Nolan Bushnell and the GC thing?
I did. I read that from the Discord, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely disappointed because that kind of a movement helps a lot of women who have undergone those
Mm-hmm.
experiences, and women go through a lot of that every single day. And so when someone makes the presumption that we've all heard the stuff that came out of Atari in those early days, but
Mm-hmm.
when someone's presumptuous about what what kind of like who was like
Mm-hmm.
people being grabbed without their consent and that kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the rest of the everyone from the Atari come out and say, no, that actually did
Mm-hmm.
not happen at all.
Yeah.
Then you just have Jesus, lady, the politician. You just
Mm-hmm.
do some research. There's enough of this rampant in the games industry
Yeah.
where if you there's no reason to pick the wrong one. That's ridiculous. How do you pick the
Yeah.
wrong one? Of
Yeah.
all the stuff you can pick in the games industry where sexism is rampant, how do you do that? How do you do that? I don't know.
1 second, I see what I messed up on. Sorry about that, folks. I'm still, for those of you just tuning in, I'm suffering from a cold right now, so blame all stream related shenanigans on that. I see what I did. 1 second, let me update that.
Awesome. So if I say something stupid, it's Josh's cold's fault.
Exactly. And again, for you guys just tuning in, if I do collapse, Rob will have to take over the stream. It'll just be like this empty screen. Maybe you'll see like my arm like raise up from below, but Rob will have to assume host duties.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Until such time as his internet goes out.
mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole Nolan Bushnell thing. Like XP was talking about this in chat. I think I agree with him, and I think you're leaning the same way that it just feels like they're going after the wrong target there with Nolan Bushnell. And a
Yeah,
lot of
I think it's just because of all the kind of, I wouldn't say dirt, but a lot of people when they talk about
mm-hmm.
Atari in those days, like it was a bunch of nerds who got rich,
Yeah.
and so they spent their money in just very lavish ways. And you hear about that kind of thing, and you just assume that there's a whole bunch of wrongness going on. But there's a lot of documentation out there and people who have worked there. You can just talk to them.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. And like I say, you can throw a rock and hit some
Oop.
industry. How do you find the wrong one? How do you uncover
Yeah.
that wrong stone?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yeah. There's one that I personally know about because I kind of saw it from like kind of the wings, but I'm not in the position to uncork that one. But yeah, there's certainly cases of it out there. And again, like it's one of those things where if you call out the wrong person, it just destroys the movement. It destroys any semblance of reputability for them.
Yeah, and like E3, like E3 with the booth babes, like there's a
That's an
target
easy
right
target
there.
right there.
That's an easy target, exactly.
Yeah, and El Gordo was talking about so there's a fan service crossover of a SNK's fighting game series. So they're all going to be, it's going to be all women, and supposedly there's an elaborate reason why they're all dressed in bikinis and cat outfits and stuff that we talk about. I'm pretty sure will get flagged on YouTube.
Yeah. What was that old? I don't want to call it the first one. It was like 2002 or 2003. There's a volleyball game,
Dead or Alive,
that came out. Do you guys remember that one?
Oh yes, I remember that one. The game that you never want to show in stores. That the one that you want to like kind of do the sandwich deal.
I'm just trying to look it up really quick. I probably shouldn't because now I'm gonna have all kinds of like flags. Yeah, I'll just close it. This is not the appropriate time for that.
It's the whole idea of sex sells, I think, and that a lot of people have kind of turned away from these days. Yeah, and that's another point, son. It's the whole cultural divide as well. Famously, Japan and Europe, they are fine with, or I know Japan's fine with sexuality, but violence is a hard no. And of course, it's vice versa over here.
Right.
Like I said, from my opinion, I say you're free to make whatever game you want and let the chips fall where they lie. If you want to make a hardcore, graphic, violent game, you can do that, and you'll get an audience, but you'll have people who don't want to play that game, and, everybody is fair. I know when I looked at Mother Russia Bleeds, that is a super hardcore, violent game, and it turned people off. But there are people who don't mind that extreme. We all have, I think, our own personal lines when it comes to this stuff. And I say, if you enjoy it, enjoy it. If you don't.
Right. There's an audience.
Yeah. And again, with the whole SNK thing, people are going to buy that. Let's face it. There are going to be people who are going to enjoy that. But it's always, again, that very sticky issue. And geez, we are having a very serious chat right now for a Sunday afternoon while I have a cold, but there's always that argument if a developer changes things to suit the market. Like NIS America has famously, was it NIS? I know Square Enix has done this with the Bravely Default games. They have aged up characters and changed the outfits for the female characters for the American markets, and again, like, it's one of those very weird things where people say, oh, you're just censoring the game and blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, you'll... Thank you, Alvaro.
Jeez.
We're going to have some Archer topics here next. But yeah, but if they want to change it better to a market, then I think that's more or less just them trying to feel that market out. But yeah, it's always very tricky. Like, we've talked, like a few weeks ago, we talked about some of those crazy games we saw popping up on Steam. And again, like, there's an audience for it. If there wasn't, people weren't going to make them. But you also have to realize that if you make a game like that, you're not going to be shown front page on Steam anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting thing to go after those kinds of markets, and I mean, it's not exactly it's something you could fairly well assume that maybe the gameplay isn't great.
Yeah, and
reasons
it's tricky.
They focused on different things.
Yeah, like again, like NIS America has certainly put out a lot of fan servicey games in the past. But like even like the Disgaea series has fan service, but it's still a hardcore SRPG. But again, like
and that...
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, there's no okay. Let's go down a little bit. So there is no reason that you
Hmm.
can't do that, especially if it's not. But if it's the focal point of your game, then that leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean,
Hmm.
certainly there are like that Final Fantasy 15 trailer.
Hmm.
Woman you see is wearing like nothing,
Yeah.
but that's not the focus of the game. It's rarely the focus of the game.
Yeah.
That
And
just happens to be in the trailer to kind of attract.
yeah, and the foreign part of the point, women use their sexuality to their own benefit. It's always, again, it's a very murky issue. Like, for instance, Bayonetta has been constantly argued: is it a game for that shows a strong woman? Is it just fan service? And that's an hour-long discussion, at minimum, if we want to go into that. But like, I do feel that, again, it's up to the developer to make the game they want to, and again, let the chips fall where they lie.
Oh yeah,
Like Yoko Taro, again, of like Nier Almeida, they ask him, why are all the female characters so sexual? Why is everyone looking so attractive? He's like, I like pretty people in my games. Like, that was his whole reason for it.
yeah.
Or
It's. I mean, it really is. It's up to you, and as you say, let the chips fall where they may.
yeah, Dragon's Dogma. No, not Dogma. Dragon's Crown. If you saw that game, if
I have not.
Getter just got Getter and I just mentioned this exact game almost at the exact time there. But yeah, like Dragon's Crown. That is a beautiful looking game, but it is, fan servicey to the max there. But again,
So,
that's what
by
the
the way, I've never heard that term so specifically used before.
which one fan service?
Like I've always heard it used as like, oh, this is like an old favorite character out of the bag, like as an Easter egg. I've never heard it specifically used as this,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
in
makes sense.
anime kind of. I know it's a term that's
Anime,
used by anime a lot.
yeah.
But yeah, that's again another can of worms we don't want to be opening up here today. But yeah, like Dragon's Crown, again, that game is amazing to look at, but it also earned a lot of flack. And again, like, here's, I think, the one thing that I don't agree with. That if someone complains about your game and they say, I don't like it or stuff like that, you shouldn't just immediately go on the defensive and insult them for it.
Right, right. No, I agree with that. Because just like you can put out whatever game you want, you
Mm-hmm.
can also buy and have an opinion about any of those games,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the fine line comes in as a developer.
Mm-hmm.
Is are you making a game that's gonna turn people off in
Mm-hmm.
such a fashion that you lose money, or is it going to gain you money in some fashion? As I
Yeah.
knock my laptop using
Yeah.
hand gestures over here.
And like we
Uh,
said with the SNK game, there are people who are going to buy that. Let's face it. There are
yeah,
going to be
of
a lot of
course.
people who are going to play that game. Either they're going to play for the fan service, they're going to play for the fighting, or they're going to play for a combination of the two.
I
And
mean, it's SNK as well. I
yeah,
mean, they've got a name,
yeah.
so
And
uh,
if there's enough people who are going to buy that game to support it, more power to them, I say. Again, it's going to rub people the wrong way. Context again for Archer fans there. But at the end of the day, that's the game they want to make. Good, bad, and everything in between.
right.
Oh boy. How did we get.
Yeah, they'll find out at the
Yeah.
box office or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yep, and like there's a even grayer topic we had, like Getter said, about the Bram Valgio art. I am not an art guy by any stretch of the imagination, but again, there are a lot of striking and polarized art styles that have been developed over the years. And
Of
again,
course.
it's always that push and pull. You say you want more artistic stuff, but if we do something that you don't like, do you have the right to demand boycotts and changes of that? I don't
Oh,
think so.
I mean, yes,
Oh,
I do. I mean, you
you,
can demand
oh,
boycotts and changes all you want. They don't have to.
yeah.
I mean, that's just how it all goes. And sometimes that's even
Hmm.
good publicity in a weird kind of way.
All bad
As they
publicity.
say.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, that kind of you just kind of shake it off if you don't agree,
Yeah.
and you move on because it is at the end of the day, it's a game and it's
Hmm.
a buyer and whatever.
Yeah.
Now, well, I'll skip over the rest of that because the whole Nolan Bushnell thing, the award was the particular issue
Hmm.
there. Like even the gal didn't do her research, neither did
Hmm.
the GDC. So
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I think I do agree with the Atari people about that. I don't think he should have lost that award. And again, like he put out a apology letter, which of course there's no good way to write an apology letter like that. I think you're going to anger people no matter what you say.
Yeah.
hmm But yeah, that's
Yep.
let's move on to something a
Move
little
on.
bit lighter here. We're about 43 minutes into the stream, maybe a little bit less than that. Uh, thank you.
Phrasing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man! Again, I know XP was giving me the name of one of the people who's defending him to maybe try and get on for a recorded cast. I don't think I want to do that one live because I'm just afraid. Again, it's going to bring up a lot of heated comments.
Well, also,
Mm-hmm.
she's a very legitimate like
Source.
game like icon
Mm-hmm.
that you can bring up who worked at a
Mm-hmm.
massive gaming icon location. So there's any number of good things that can be that you can discuss with her.
Yeah, especially
She's
the
got a, I
history
mean,
of
she's
Atari too.
yeah, she's going to have a lot of cool things to say, perspectives of the game business that many people just don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can send her a message on Twitter after we're done here.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to think if there's any other small topics to get to. Let me. Now it's my turn to do some quick internet searching. Let's see. Gama Sutra, Fire Fades, Future of the. Here's a quick one. Nintendo's not sure what they're going to do in terms of their handheld line after the successful launch of the Switch. That's an interesting one. I would love to see more. Like the 3DS. I love my 3DS. And the DS as well. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. I guess. What do you think?
About the Nintendo thing,
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, they basically spend all this effort putting together a console that's a handheld.
Mm-hmm.
Why not stick with it?
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you're just making more products that kind of divert from each other. So you might as well just kind of embrace the fact that you've made one that acts as both. And certainly there are fans of, like you say, the 3DS, and I'm not a part of that culture, so I can't speak to it. I can't speak to
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of a handheld. I haven't owned one since the DS,
Ah.
so no, I don't even think I own the DS. Whatever.
Oh.
Um, I haven't owned one in a very long time, so it's hard for me to talk from that perspective.
Yeah. And again, technology is just very tricky. Again, I am not a hardware guy, so your mileage may vary, or I'm not, the I am not a lawyer stipulation here, but yeah, it's very tricky when it comes to building hardware like this because you're committing to, multi-year pipelines for your game. So if it does well, you better, keep striking that pinata or keep digging that well. But if you
Right.
fail, you are out a ton of money. And I'm
And
not.
Nintendo certainly had their ups and downs in
Yeah.
terms of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
But like, they have this opportunity to just kind of say, you know what, we got both, let's stick with it.
Strike where the iron is
Especially
hot.
given the fact that there are smartphones out there and iPads and or tablets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Competing with those is very hard.
Oh yes, we even saw it with Super Mario Run last year.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I hated that game.
Yeah.
I loved the game. I hated their monetization.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, as a experiment, I finally downloaded Clash of Clans. I'm trying to play that on my smartphone. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, the time limits on that—it's killing me. There's a tangent right there, but I'm sure you're like this as well, Rob. That when I want to play a game, I focus time on it. Like I don't like to
Yeah.
come back and forth, back and forth. If I'm going to sit and play a game for an hour, I'm going to sit and play that game for the hour, and then I'm going to do something else. But the
Yeah.
whole wait five
And
minutes,
there was
yeah,
the game out there on the iPhone. I can't remember the name of it, but I spent a good year as part of the community and helping build up our little town or whatever, and that was very satisfying. In Clash of Clans, I don't know if I'd be willing to start from the bottom and try to work my way up these days. It seems
yeah.
like it'd be
It's just a
very
lot of
futile.
investment. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I keep hearing people talk about the whole South Park Phone Destroyer game, that it seems to be doing well enough for them to keep supporting it, but again, like, it's one of those games where I don't have the money, or I don't even want to spend that money. I don't
Yeah.
know if I mentioned this in a video or I mentioned this on Discord, but I watched a video of a pro level player talking, and he's saying the game's not pay to win, but it is a pay or grind. It's like, if you want to catch up to me, you need to spend at least minimum $1,000, and I'm just like, that's pay to win if you're buying power. I'm sure Ramin got a bit of chest pain from that as well.
Probably. I mean, it is. It's disgusting. It's like if I'm an athlete, right?
Hmm.
And I say, you know what? I'm a pro. To get like me, you have to spend thousands of dollars in coaching and countless hours training. And
And buying
well, you know what? I
equipment.
I, I don't want to be a pro.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna go play this other game.
Hmm. Yeah. But again, we're kind of getting off track, and I would like to wrap things up in the next maybe 15, 20 minutes so I can hopefully go lay down. And by the way, I noticed that this entire cast so far, I haven't had one choking thing, so
Oh,
that's
nice.
good, but
Knock on wood.
now I'm going to start coughing
Knock
my
on wood.
guts out. Maybe that Advil is starting to work, who knows. But let's get to the topic. And Rob suggested this one before the cast. I think this is a very interesting one. And it has to do with NDAs in the game industry, aka non disclosure agreements. They come in many forms. We've seen them for private and beta testers of games. We've seen them from developers saying you cannot mention you work on this game, or you cannot reveal this game until so and so date. Same goes for publishers to developers. And I guess since this is your topic, Rob, what are some other examples of NDAs if I didn't mention them all?
Well, really, the variety comes down to, for me in particular, is on the indie side to the AAA side. There are a lot of reasons why AAA, in terms of one with their employees, two with their third parties, three with like reporters and such, because there is an awful lot of like what do you call it? It's like espionage, industrial espionage
Mm-hmm.
between these giant companies,
Yeah.
and that is a thing. So I kind of shrug my shoulders and say, you know what? Chances are, if Square Enix was coming out with another Final Fantasy, they probably wouldn't want all of the spoilers to come out right away, for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But on the indie side, when you have an indie developer come up to you and say, "Hey, I want you to look at my game, but sign this first," or "I want you to sell my game, but make sure that you don't say anything about the game." Um, and even people who are like, "I have a great idea, but I can't tell you what it is."
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thing, and I'm sure you run into it a lot from your standpoint. Like, I want you to check out my game, but sign this first, so I know you won't screw me over.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like, that kind of mentality is very confusing to me from a small developer
Yeah.
standpoint. Um,
I've been mostly lucky. I think I may have had one or two in the last 3 years. I've actually wanted me to sign something or agree. At most, what I get is usually an embargo saying we don't want you to mention this game until the day of release or 2 days before, and I'm more than fine with that. Because
oh
again,
yeah,
you have to be really careful when you're playing these multi-market and multi-advertising campaigns. But yeah, I agree with you, Rob. Like, saying to someone, "We want you to play the game, but you can't talk about it, or you can't mention these issues," or stuff like that. Again, it just
yeah.
seems like you're tying the person's hands behind their back.
The final project I was going to work on, and I mean, I'm not. It doesn't matter. I was supposed to sell the game without showing anything off except for the trailer, and that is severely tying someone's hands.
Oh yeah.
Now, from an indie standpoint, one of my favorite things is I've got this great idea for a game, but I can't tell you about it. And to me, I'm like, well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it's great, and I don't want someone to steal it. No one cares about your idea. Like,
That was.
let me just say that out there. Nobody cares about your idea because, like,
Mm-hmm.
if someone listens to you say it and they're like, you know what, that's $1 million idea, I'm going to steal it, and then I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars making sure it gets developed in just the
Mm-hmm.
right way that his vision was, or her vision was, so that I can
Mm-hmm.
put it out there and make all that money that this person was planning on making.
Mm-hmm.
that's never going to happen. That will
Yeah.
never happen. Like you tell me an idea, chances are in a discussion, if I say I have this great idea for a game and I start telling you about it, the next thing that's going to happen is, well, I have a great idea for a game. Let me tell you about it. Like
Hmm.
that's how it works.
Yeah. And I had that mentality where like 15, 20 years ago, when I was first thinking about trying to do stuff. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, no, it's not happening. You're not going to be finding someone on the bus one day who's going to write down your idea in their notebook and then run to a studio and make millions of dollars off of it. And
Right.
as Getter sounding, that's always a very good point. Execution always trumps ideas, and that
Absolutely.
is certainly true. I mean, one of the most brilliant ideas, or one of the great things about the independent scene, is that a lot of developers are not in direct competition with each other. You mentioned, of course, the industrial espionage, which I'm pretty sure I agree that that's going on between major studios. But when it comes to the independent side of things, everyone's kind of doing their own thing. I mean, you can have 10 different platformers and have completely 10 different forms of design. Um,
Yeah.
the Five Nights at Freddy's phenomenon, Stardew Valley, Undertale. Yes, there are games that come out that are similar to those games, but they're not um, superseding them. I mentioned this before, and it's actually a very interesting point. Like, I have family members who tell me, Josh, you play video games all day. Don't you get bored with them? I'm like, no, because I'm playing 5 to 10 different games. So one game doesn't mean, like, if I play a first-person shooter, that doesn't mean I'm not in the mood for a Souls-like. If I play a Souls-like, it doesn't mean not in the mood for a platformer. And that's one of the
Yeah.
best things about the game industry is that you can have that variety. And like I said, when it comes to the independent side of things, I mean, I've seen developers who are more than willing to be transparent about their ideas and talk to one another. I mean, hell, they want to talk to me about it all the time, and it's great.
Yeah. And that is the part that has always gotten me, is that especially these days. And I do understand, by the way, as a young developer, and you have this
Hmm.
idea, and it's your
Your
one else to
baby.
have it. And I understand that mentality. You have to kind of get over it, especially these days, because you're not going to get any following unless you start talking about your game
Oh,
and
yes.
asking for opinions on what your game is, and using some of those thoughts to make it better and involving people, because that's the best way to do it these days, is to get a bunch of people excited about the game because they kind of belong to they kind of own it too. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Now there's pitfalls there, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Um,
And I won't get to Elgar's comment there because I'm pretty sure he may be reading my mind about, because that was the topic that we were going to talk about until Rob suggested this one that we're going to save for next week, and that's the idea of streaming entire games. Is that considered fair use, and does the person really add something to those kinds of discussions? But yeah, that will be next week because if we start talking about that now, we're going to be, who knows? I will probably collapse at that point, and then
yeah.
Raw will have to have the whole conversation by himself.
And you don't want that. You want to be involved in that conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, there are a lot, as Garrett says, like the snake oil folks. There are the shovelware people out there who are pumping out. When Flappy Bird took off, they made their own version. When PUBG, DayZ, again, like it's kind of like what's the thing about the swallows returning from Capistrano? Like when a popular indie game comes out, people are going to try and copy it. Uh, I
And
mean,
but
go.
that's different from having an idea and sharing. I
Yeah.
mean, the finished product is already out there. People are building upon something that works,
Hmm.
which that's its own discussion as well. Is stealing in the industry, which whatever. I'm fine with it.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's just very hard these days. Again, as you said, Rob, publicity is very important for developers. I mean, I got an email from developers who are trying to do a Kickstarter these days, and I'm going to release the podcast we did of them next week. I already made a post about it on Twitter, but like, I didn't hear about this game until they emailed me, and that's not good. Like, again,
Right.
with Darkest Dungeon, people were telling me about that game. They were following it for months before that Kickstarter. Like, we've said this
Right.
before, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this one, Rob, that you don't want to wait until the day of your game is out, your Kickstarter, to actually do advertising.
Yeah. No, that's bad.
Hmm. Now, when it comes to the NDA side of things, like, I guess I'm trying to think where to go first, either indie or AAA. There, I guess keeping with like the indie side, like I guess, do you think that there's like any reason to have NDAs of that kind these days, or do you think it just doesn't serve a purpose anymore?
Not for that. Not for that group.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. Unless it's like again, you had some kind of hit first,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't want to give away some secrets. If you have a following already, yeah, whatever. Don't release information about it. You can kind of play with that. But if you don't have a hit, if you have released a couple of games and you just, you're releasing a third and you've never gotten a following, just talk about it. People want to talk about games. They want to talk about your ideas. They want to add to them. They want to insult them. They want to do all kinds of things to your ideas. And yeah, willing coverage in the first place, what Getter says.
Mm-hmm.
The NDA part, I've just run into it too much. There have been people who come from the AAA side who have dealt with NDAs their entire lives. And so they assume it's something you need to have, that you need to protect your idea. And some people may even say that. They may even say, you got to protect this. Just do whatever it takes. Don't, just don't protect it. If that's your only idea that you're ever going to have in your life, well, I'm sorry. I apologize. That's usually not a problem. Ideas are intrinsically worthless. It's the execution that's the valuable part.
Mm-hmm. And again, we've seen games that take so long to come out that even if you tried an NDA on that, it doesn't matter if someone else beats you to it first or releases something similar.
Yeah. And my favorite thing to say is, like, I could always say, and this was Getter's comment earlier about execution, like, I could say, you know what, I want to make a game about a snail who fights zombies in space but underwater at the same time. Mm-hmm. And you're like, that doesn't sound like, that's weird. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's a million games out there that you look at them and you're like, wow, that is a bizarre concept for a game. And if someone were to describe that to you, you'd be like, no way, that's not a game. It's just the execution. It could totally be great, but if it's like, it can sound great or terrible. If you don't make it right, then it's not good. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and there's just so many skills that go into making a successful game that a lot of people don't talk about. And again, getting back to our point here, just because you have a great idea doesn't mean anything if you can't make it. Or we've seen developers who they just fail with group management or project management, so the whole thing falls apart even if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, like you say, their visions are so grand. Let's say take it to a AAA company and see what happens. One, they're going to say, no, we're not listening to your idea. Don't even bother.
Yeah,
because they're liable if something they're doing is similar to what you're about to say.
We've seen some cases of that in the past too, I've heard.
Yeah.
And again, everybody has ideas. That's the big point. You're not going to walk into a AAA studio where they're all just sitting around going, what's going to be our next game? No, they pretty much know what they're doing now and probably for the next 3 to 4 years.
If not more.
Yeah. And again, it's just very hard to put your finger down on what makes these games work. I mean, hell, we've been doing these podcasts, the live and recorded ones, for years now, and I don't think we're any closer to coming with that magical checklist of how to make a multi-million-dollar best-selling game.
Yeah, I do think the only reason to not tell people that I thought about it at all, except for a description.
I'm sorry,
maybe add a little meat to the product there before you. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say. The only reason not to talk about people super early in the process is if it's just not, if it's got no meat on the bones and you're just talking about a concept that might gain some traction, but it's not going to get you anywhere. If you're just saying, well, I've got this snail idea with space and water and that's it. I haven't written anything down.
Yeah, no one's really going to care about that.
Yeah.
Like, you should have something to show people before you actually start talking. And again, during that pre-prototype stage, you may figure out this idea doesn't work. And that's a good point where you're not going to tell people. Like, once you start building a website for your game, or you actually have a prototype or early alpha, it's time to start getting the word out there.
Yeah.
All right.
And just tell everybody, let them play as much as possible. I know I've people are averse to demos because they feel like they're giving away too much of the game. Again, how are people going to know what it's about if they can't play it? You can't show someone a visual of a game and expect them to get it.
Oh yeah.
They'll be like, "Oh, it looks cool."
Mm-hmm. And we could talk about demos for another time because that's another 30, 40 minutes easily. And
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I've said my piece on NDAs, so.
All right, we had this very serious chat this Sunday afternoon. I was hoping this would be an easy one, and we've talked about sexism in the workplace, sexuality in video games, and NDAs. So we've certainly crossed the. We certainly hit a lot of points for today. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to probably go lay down and relax for the rest of the day. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to put out a dissecting design for tomorrow. I'm going to see how I feel later. But, like I said, it's 50-50 right now if we'll do a stream tonight. I'll have to see, again, how I feel. But hopefully I'll be feeling well enough for our live cast this Tuesday around 3. And again, this coming Saturday, I think I said 3:30 or 4. So, with all that said, thank you so much for watching us this week. If you're watching this recorded and would like to get an ad-free version of this, be sure to check out patreon.com/gwblazer to find out how. And be sure to check, if you want to watch Rob do streaming, you are still at twitch.tv/IndieVoyageRob. And you want to tell people your streaming time.
Oh, usually 2 o'clock Pacific on the weekends. I'm going to try to do it today. I've got a game of Torchlight. I'm trying to get the guy to 100. I'm at 98, so probably going to chip away at that a little bit.
All right. And we'll be back next Sunday around 3 Eastern for our regular live talk. So, that's all I got to say. I'm going to fill up my drinks and get some rest. So, have a great night, folks. And if I don't see you later this evening, hopefully I'll see you either Monday night or Tuesday afternoon. But until then, have a good rest of the sunny afternoon. Hopefully you don't get drenched out there. Till next time, see you all then.